Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm here today with a very special guest, Mr. David Hubbard. He is the official town historian for the town of Winthrop, former town moderator, very active in the town of Winthrop, especially when it comes to the history of Winthrop. And today we're going to be talking about a book that was produced and underwritten by the Winthrop Improvement and Historical Association. David was very instrumental in compiling and editing this book. We also have contributors in this book, Margaret Hinckley, Stephen Moran, John Sears, John Winthrop Sears, and Dr. James O'Taylor. So, David, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little background about this book. Why was this book produced, or why is it important that the Improvement in Historical Association thought we should have a book with maps in it?
The thing that got us to put this book together was the fact that we thought there ought to be a set of records showing what has happened in Winthrop from the day it was first established. And so we thought one of the best ways to do that was to put out a book. Mm-hmm. And we've managed to accumulate maps all the way from, I think the first map in here is, he says fumbling his way through the book. The first map we have, the first map we have was from 1624, and it was a map that was drawn by Captain John Smith, and I think all of you have probably heard of him. And he was in the period of time from 1579 to 1631. He sailed over from England to here a number of times, and while he was here, he drew a map, which is the first one that's on page 12.
Right.
And there's a picture of him on it. And it says New England, and it's got all the things shown on it that he felt were important. The only thing on here that references anything from today is down on the lower left-hand quarter. It says the River Charles, and that river is still called the Charles River in Boston. Other things are still here, Cape Ann and so forth, but that's the only thing in our particular area that is here today.
Excellent.
Now,
I think you were going to go to page 1 to read the foreword.
yeah. Okay. And I'm going to read you some of the material that's in this book. For those of us who like to study history, maps provide the skeletal framework upon which to place the events and folklore of the past. With the increased interest in the historical development of communities through maps, the effort to present a chronological listing of those referring to Winthrop was undertaken. And then we summarized all that in this book. Winthrop, formerly the only town in Suffolk County, is genuinely unique with its almost 18,000 residents housed in some 4,500 buildings containing approximately 6,400 living units on 46 miles of road and located on a 1.63 square mile peninsula in the Boston Harbor. While now a residential community for many who work in Boston and at the airport, we enjoy the life of a seaside town with ready access to the educational facilities as well as the entertainment and cultural centers of a large cosmopolitan city. In the early 1600s, this was a lovely summer seaside resort area for small groups of Native Americans, in other words, Indians. As the English settlement on Shawmut Peninsula grew, these early European settlers in what became known as Boston looked across the bay to our shores for pasture land to feed their farm animals. The maps referenced and presented herein show the development of Winthrop area from that period and provide a cartographic timeline depicting the story, the growth, and changes of Winthrop as it evolved into the town we know and love today. Most,
go ahead.
Go ahead. All right. Most New England communities were established at a crossroads in a valley or at a body of water, such as a river, a lake, or the shoreline of the ocean. They usually started with construction of a meeting house, school, church, or store together with several houses. Our peninsula was unique in that we started with a group of farms and that by 1650 had been consolidated into 5 or 6 that survived into the 1800s. While a school was built in 1805, followed by 2 or 3 houses, and then a church in 1834, it wasn't until the 1840s, just after the first bridge was constructed to East Boston in 1839, that any significant number of homes appeared on the scene north of Cottage Hill. However, sufficient houses to provide quarters for about 300 people and a church were constructed at Point Shirley to support the various business ventures that commenced operation there as early as 1753. Maps provide a visual appreciation for how an area appeared in the past. The more one becomes familiar with the development of their community, the more that appreciation becomes. It is with the second edition of the first of a series of books planned by the Winthrop Improvement and Historical Association to enhance our understanding of Winthrop's rich heritage. Since then, a book containing 400 old picture postcards of Winthrop and a student activity book describing the narrow gauge railroad train that operated from 1880s until 1940 have been published. Subsequent books will depict buildings no longer with us, as well as those that have survived either on their original site or by being moved and incorporated into newer structures. The various businesses and resort facilities that have come and gone or are still here will be described and pictured.
Interesting. As you were talking about how we transitioned through the years, this was really like a little gem as far as this was like the Cape Cod is to Boston. Winthrop was to Boston.
Yes.
Way back when.
Yes.
And I remember growing up as a kid, I kind of got some of the tail end of it. I remember the old hotel that was in between Sturgis Street and Irwin Street. Irwin was where I grew up.
Yes.
It was called the new Winthrop Hotel.
Right.
And it stretched from one street to the other with a big open area, and they had cottages behind it. And all the little homes around there, which are now been subdivided and reconstructed and rebuilt, they were nothing but cottages. Those cottages were all vacant in the summer, in the wintertime.
And they ran all the way down Shore Drive.
Exactly. And sometimes you see these little houses, if you drive up and down, especially the beach, you may still see a house and you say, why is it so small? How could people live in it? But it was a cottage. You know?
Yep, and there's several other places in town too, Ron, where small houses were built like that. Mm-hmm. And the Highlands have them, and of course Point Shirley has a number of them.
Yep. Very interesting.
Okay.
So if we go to page 12, on page 12, we already referred to that. That was the first map that was drawn. Yeah. But I think page 13 is the next one.
Okay, page 12, page 13.
The map of Pullen Point and its environs. And this was by Whitman and Howard. You know, you've seen that name through the years.
Yes.
You know, it's...
They were a couple of men in town that did this kind of thing, and just like we're doing this.
Exactly. So tell us about this map.
Okay, well, this was prepared in the early 1900s, and it tells what our peninsula looked like in 1624. And it,
So they refer to it here as Pullen Point
right,
instead of the town of Winthrop.
right. We were called Pullen Point. And the reason we got called Pullen Point is the waterway that we had running between us and Deer Island.
Mm-hmm.
Boats used to go back and forth, and a lot of those boats were pulled through there.
Yeah.
And they were then pulled up like where our golf course is today. The water came in up there a ways.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now I notice it says Hog Island. Now Hog Island, that would be today, wouldn't that be the marsh, the Belle Isle Marsh?
yes,
Okay. And Noodles Island, that would be the airport.
yes, yes.
And the only other thing I know is gone is Apple Island. I think that was filled in as part of the airport as well.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Interesting.
And the people that lived in Boston, it was getting a little crowded, and they had to have a farm. They had to have animals because they had to eat. And so what they did was they looked across the harbor and they saw our beautiful green grassed areas. They said, hey, we'll take our animals over there and let them graze there. And the people in Winthrop said, that's not bad. We get paid for that, so we make a little money out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they built a fence of across the Belle Isle Marsh, and this fence was a bunch of tree stumps and branches and stuff like that just dumped in there, and that was to keep the wolves from coming into town and attacking the animals, and also to keep the animals from leaving town.
Interesting.
So that was our first fence.
All right. Now, page 14 is another. No, we go from there. We go to page 15.
Okay, page 14.
So, page 15 looks like it's the original ownership in
Well, it was,
1637.
Yes, this is when they allotted the town up to this group of men that's shown on the map. And
So it looked like John Winthrop owned most of the beach.
yeah, and he owned a lot over here at the side.
Yeah.
And Gibbons, there are a number of people here that names you've probably heard before, Ron. But
Stinson, Bates, interesting left near Bates Avenue.
yeah,
Brenton, Hudson, Guy Bones, Fairweather, John Winthrop, John Oliver, John Sanford, William Aspinwall, William Pierce.
great. And then in 1675, King Philip, a Native American chieftain, tried to organize the various tribes in the area for one last attempt to drive the English from their shore. And his headquarters were in a woodland group of small caves in eastern Massachusetts that can still be seen today on the campus of Stonehill College. And I've been out there and I've looked at the interesting bunch of caves, but that was where they lived. A legal document was prepared, and for consideration, valuable sum of money, I don't know how much, the Indians signed the ownership of this area over to English settlers. And in this book on page 16, it's a copy of that legal document that was prepared. And it goes to the next page too.
I see. Okay. On page 18, we have farms at Pullen Point.
Right.
So this was in 1690.
Correct.
then called, again, still Pullen Point.
Yep.
Jonathan Bill, the Bill Marsh, Joseph Bill. Interesting.
What page are you on there?
I'm on 18.
13?
18.
18, okay. All right. As you can see by the title on it, it says that most of the island, our peninsula, was owned by the Bill family and by Dean Winthrop. Now, homes started to be built here, and as most people who live in town know, the Dean Winthrop house was built in 1637, and it's still on its original location on 40 Shirley Street. And it's the oldest wood frame house in the entire United States that has been continuously lived in. There are 2 or 3 others that are older, but they're not in very good shape, and they haven't been continuously lived in.
Interesting.
So that's one of the things that we have, and that's the reason that it got bought and pulled together by the Winthrop Improvement Historical Association, who maintain it, and it's available for people to go and take a look at it any time they'd like. And
Of course, it's that time of year
you
that
can-
the Strawberry Festival will be happening pretty soon.
yes, right.
That's an annual event.
And absolutely, and it's been going on for probably over 100 years. Now, if
So, according to my notes, page 19 is the next one.
yep,
The map of Boston Harbor.
okay. Now, this is kind of an interesting map in the fact that, again, it's a hand-drawn map, but you'll notice that somebody took the effort to draw buildings which were identifiable at that time. And in Winthrop, you'll see 4 buildings, one of which is the Dean Winthrop House. That's the little one that's over to the right-hand side.
What are the other 3?
What are the other 3?
Do you know? You must know.
Yeah, yes, I do, but I can't.
So there's one that seems to be down along near where the Elks is located. Then you have another one that's in the, it appears to be in the Maze.
Right.
And then another one that looks like the Highlands.
Yeah, I think you'll find that those homes, well, I think one of them was Jonathan Bill House, Charles Bill House, and John Tewksbury was at 6 Somerset Avenue. And,
Well, that could be that one.
yep,
Yeah. Washington Terrace was Edward Gibbons' house.
yep,
Joseph Bill House on Johnson Avenue.
yes,
That's Somerset and Bellevue.
yep.
And the other one, north side of Ocean View near Bowden Street. Interesting. Okay. The next referral is page 25, David.
25. Okay. This is an 1844 map, and it's
Now, you were instrumental in putting this together.
yes. What we did was got hold of Sidvin Tucker's records and Lucius Floyd's notes, and put these houses in here to show what was here in 1844.
I see.
One of the things that's kind of interesting there is this Sidvin Tucker, who was the town historian for many, many years. And I inquired one time, I said, where in the world did he get the name Sidvin? And it appears as though he had two uncles, Sidney and Vincent. And his mother liked both of them so much that she named him Sidvin, and that's how he got the name.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Now, we have on this map the 25 buildings that were in existence in Winthrop in 1844. And if you look down the list there, and I assume you'll display that on the screen, it tells who they are
Yep.
and when they were built and when they were
Pages 25
raised.
and 26. And it's interesting if you look at the names again. Dean Winthrop, David Floyd, Thomas Floyd, David Floyd Sr.,
The Taft's
Samuel Sturgis, Joseph Tewksbury, Taft's Inn, Hancock Wheeler, Gibbons, Belcher, Burrell, Wales, all these names that go back into history.
Right.
The town of Winthrop. We have many, many streets named after some of these original landowners and people that were instrumental in developing the town.
Yep. We've done a very good job, Ron, in remembering the names of people who were very active in our town.
Okay, so we go from there to page 28, David.
Okay. 28.
And that is the
This is,
incorporation of the town.
Right. It's a petition. It was written in 1852, and it was to incorporate the town. And it's signed by Floyds and Belchers and so forth. You'll see all kinds of names in there. And
Wells, Hyman Plummer,
yep,
John Belcher, Burrell, Parrish, Porter, Burrell, Lang, Clifford, Davis, Fay, Howe, Loring. Interesting.
yep.
Very
A
interesting.
lot of those names are still with us
Yep.
in town.
So page 31 is the next one you referred to.
Okay. Now this particular,
And identifying more buildings in 1859.
right, and this is one where there were some 86 buildings in town, and those owners have been noted as well as a few that have not yet been identified. And remember, these streets were shown were basically dirt roads, and some, such as the northern end of Herman Street, were only wide paths to provide access to homes in the area. And I took this particular map and I added the numbers to it, and we have the 45 homes that were there then.
Interesting, in looking at the map, there's hardly any homes at the beach.
That's true.
On the east side of the railroad tracks.
Correct.
And there's hardly any up on Cottage Hill, and very few down the point, and very few in the maze.
Right.
And the Highlands, that must have still been a farm and a grazing area, because there's
Yes,
nothing
it
up
was.
there either.
And people just didn't go over there very much. Now, the buildings that are on here, which are 86 of them, because they're both pages. And one of the things that we did, the assessors were, over the years, have had a number of problems. And the fact that people come in, I want to know when my house was built. Am I one of the original houses in town? And all kinds of questions. So what I did was I made this map up, and we've printed a very large 3 by 5 foot size of it, and it's hanging now in the assessor's office.
Really?
And this next page shows a list of all 86 property owners and who owned them and so forth, and we have that posted next to it. And now people come in and they want to talk about, was my house here then, and if it was, who owned it and so forth. And the assessors, instead of having to go look up all the information, say, well, why don't you go over to the wall and take a look and see. So if you have an old house in town that was built before 1859, and you want to know information about it, go to the town hall and go to the assessor's office. They'll be delighted to see you. And so that's that one.
So now it's page 35 and 36, which is really a two-pager
Yes.
of homes laid out in a panoramic view that you've identified by way of arrows, and you've got them coded and so forth.
Right.
So where was this taken from, David?
This was taken from up on
The Highlands, it
in
looks
the
like.
Highlands area.
Okay.
And it, what they did was they took 6 pictures, and the man that took them because he was trying to get people interested in putting an insane asylum in town here.
Really?
And this was part of his program, was to show them what it was like. What I did was I took the 6 photographs and I pieced them together to make one long photograph. And then I put the numbers on, identifying all the buildings, and people could take a look at this and see how the town looked in 1868.
Interesting.
And there's some very interesting views in here. The Dean Winthrop House can be seen. And number 19 is the Dean Winthrop House.
Yep.
And there are other houses that you can recognize today as still being here. And so I put this together for that purpose.
Excellent. Excellent.
Now, going to,
We have about a minute and a half left.
we have about a minute and a half left.
Yeah, you covered everything that we discussed. So maybe we should just kind of wrap it up until the next show.
All right.
Close it with anything?
Well, yeah, I could pick a story maybe and tell you.
All right.
Where are my stories? Okay. Have I told the story of the German sub before?
I don't think you've told it on the air.
Okay, well, back on December the 6th, 1941, the day before Pearl Harbor, a German submarine came to our shore, and it docked at Egg Rock. Egg Rock is, as you know, up in Swampscott. And 2 of their sailors got out in a canoe or in a rubber raft and went onto Egg Rock and spent the night. And then the next day they went over to shore and they walked, one up to Salem, and then they came back and they walked all the way down to
Revere Beach?
well, past Revere Beach, clear down here to just out of our town here,
Beachmont?
Beachmont. And what they did was took notes on anything that looked like it was military in nature. They were trying to determine what kind of protection we had established along there. And they didn't find much, but they'd made notes of all this. And while they were here, they went to a restaurant which is located in Swampscott and is still there today. And then they went to a movie in a theater in Swampscott. Then they went back out to the Rock, and a boat came in, picked them up, and took them away. All right, the finality of this particular story is that about 10 years ago, one of these men came back, and he walked along there, and I found out about it. So I roared out and I found him and I talked to him. And he was trying to find out what may have transpired since then.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was walking, and I said, well, how do we know that you really did the things you did? Well, he said, I had dinner at, and he named the restaurant in Swampscott, and he said the lady that waited on us was Millie. And I went up there and checked, and there was a lady named Millie who was in that restaurant at that time.
Huh.
And then the other thing that he did, as I said, he walked, they went to a movie at the movie theater that's still in Swampscott, and he told me the name of the movie, and I checked it, and that movie was playing at that time. So, but there are a lot of other stories of different things that have happened. You know.
Right. We'll speak of them again, and we'll tell more stories in our next show. But
Sounds
it's time
good.
to say goodbye for now.
All right.
We went a little over, but things happen, especially when you get into the history of Winthrop. We've been spending the last half hour with Dave Hubbard, the town historian. We've been discussing some of the maps, the original maps that pertain to the town of Winthrop. So till next time, see you then.